Alright, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Woodpecker method session training that we're doing here. We are picking up today, I think today is the 5, 6, 7, 8, I believe the 9th day that I am streaming the Woodpecker method. We are picking up on puzzle number 831 today, and there are 1,128 puzzles left, so we are just a little bit under 300 puzzles remaining in the book on the first cycle. And yeah, let's go ahead and get right into it. We're gonna jump right into puzzle 800 and number 831. So let's get right to it. Black's move on this one here. We're already up one pawn, which is a good start. We could simply trade the queens and be happy with our extra pawn, but I think at the same time we can play bishop takes f2. The rook is stuck protecting both the pawn and the queen. There is also the bishop that we can capture on d2, but I suppose then white would capture on d4. And then we could capture on a2, they capture on d6. I guess we're still ahead of pawn in that position, but I like the idea of, you know, if taking the bishop is not winning a piece, I'm leaning towards picking up a pawn, trading the queens, and being up 2 pawns instead of just 1 pawn. So I think it's bishop takes f2. Then we trade the queens. I suppose you could still take the bishop here, but trading the queens when you're ahead 2 pawns seems very good. Oh, that's not it. Okay, fair enough. So there is something preferable. Then it probably has to be capturing the bishop, I guess. Oh, that's not true. Sorry, we can play bishop to e3, discovered check, and then we can pick up the bishop on d2 here. So yeah, bishop takes f2 picks up a pawn, but also it's going to pick up even more. After king h1, there is checkmate on f1. If the rook takes, we win the queen, and if the king moves, bishop to e3 is even better than trading queens. It does say queen takes e4 check and bishop c5. It says it's not over yet. I think black has a pretty solid advantage, but white is not down a piece, so definitely better to win the piece if possible. Okay, white's move on this one. My first instinct is somehow making the move f5 work and then some kind of invasion down the e file, but there might be other opportunities as well. I think we can pick the right move order here. And hey, how's it going, Harinder Brar? Can I do more French in B3 videos? Yeah, I will be doing more of those. I know it's been a little while since I've made one. I finished up the speedrun series, and for the most part, finished it up, and then haven't made any more on those particular openings. But I will be making more videos on the French and Ready Nimzo Larson. So sounds like you've enjoyed the ones that have been out so far. So glad to hear that. I think here we do play f5. The pawn takes, but then we throw in the move rook to g1 to attack the knight that's pinned. The only way to defend it is rook to g8. Then we capture the knight, and then we are able to invade on the e7 square, and eventually we will win material there. So I think it's f5 first, then rook g1, then we take the rook, and we are up the exchange. Okay, good. Let's see, knight f3 check is an idea. Rook takes g2 is an idea. Knight f3 check, king over, queen takes h4 is mate. So the other alternative would be to move the king to f1. And then the knight is hit as well as the rook. But then I guess even there, let's see, do we have a winning move from there? I'm using your French in a tournament on Saturday. Oh, very nice to hear. Hope the tournament goes well. You'll have to report back in one of the live streams and let me know how you did. Knight f3 check, king f1. I can try rook takes g2 there, but then white has queen takes f3, which is kind of a a very annoying defense. Hold on, does that work for them though? Check there. I think it does, yeah, because they go to G1 afterwards. Okay, so I don't think knight f3 and then rook takes G2 works. Knight f3 might work on move 1, but not with rook takes G2, I don't think. So then what are we doing here? Rook takes G2 right away, king takes G2. I don't really see a great follow-up check or anything like that. Knight f3, king f1. Rook G2, queen f3. Knight f3, king f1. G2, queen f3. Rook f3, rook d4. The f3, rook takes f2, king e1. I don't think we have enough. We've also sacrificed a knight, which feels like not a great situation for us. I mean, we're already equal on material. I mean, it looks like we could probably just take the pawn on b6, and then we're just up a pawn with a good position. But again, it feels like there should be something a bit more decisive. Even knight f3, even the queen taking on f3. Rook takes f3, pawn takes f3. I guess then you take on b6, right? Yeah, maybe in that circumstance it's good for black. Knight f3, king f1. I feel like the answer is probably knight f3, king f1, and then something from there. I'm leaning towards rook takes g2, but I'm thinking that white can play queen takes f3, which feels kind of like it spoils the party, so to speak. Yeah, I feel like that's better for white, but if that's not what we're going for, I mean, in a game, maybe I take on b6, but I can understand there being something much better, I assume. I'm not seeing it, or it's not jumping out at me. Rook takes g2, king takes g2, I don't see the follow-up. Oh, hold on a second. There's queen g7, isn't there? Rook takes g2, king takes g2. I think I was missing queen g7 as a check. If king h1, rook h3, king h2, knight f3. Knight f3, king h1. Oh, wait, hold on. Rook to king takes, queen check, king h2. Knight f3, queen takes, rook takes. Threatening rook takes f2 is very important. Okay, yeah, I think it's rook takes g2, and then there's queen g7. That was the move I was missing. Then knight f3 check. And then you're attacking. You're threatening to take on f2. Okay, so it does say pawn takes b6, knight to b5, and the queen can't keep the pin. And if we try knight f3 check and rook takes g2, it does say queen takes f3, and black is not winning here. Okay, so yeah, a little bit slow on the calculation, but it was correct nonetheless. This looks like rook takes knight and then queen f6 check, and then figuring it out from there. We're equal on material. Getting access to the f6 square looks really, really good. If king goes to the h file, I think we have rook e4 to h6, or to h4. If the king goes to f8, queen h8 is mate. And if the king goes to g8, that's kind of the trickiest one, I think. What are we doing if the king goes to g8? Knight e7 check, queen takes e7, queen takes g6. king h8, queen h6, king g8, rook e3, and I think black is losing when the rook gets to the g file. Okay, I think I'm going to go with that. So take there, check. I think it's this check. It's not this check. Okay. Not that check. Maybe rook takes e5 or something like that. Feels a little tame, but it does include a new piece in the attack. Okay. If we move the knight, we will then be able to take on g6 due to the pin. So where to move the knight or what to do about that is the question. Maybe knight f4? Knight f4, pawn takes, we take on f7. Knight f4 looks pretty good. Because black needs to guard both of these pawns, so... No, not at knight f4. Okay, a little bit of a loss here. I don't see a great spot for the knight to move to if it's not f4 or e7. I guess you could go to e3, but I don't know. Feels kind of odd to block the rook on the e file. Okay, I guess you just go back to e3. Oh, this is one of those. Hold on. So I want to. Yeah, it says knight f4 is even cleaner. Knight b6 wins as well if you, even though it sends the knight in the wrong direction. The game did go knight e7, and white did not win from here. Okay, so my knight e7 was not great, but it's not a great puzzle if you would if in the answers you're not even giving the best move. Like yeah, I mean, knight f4 is better according to the computer engine here. So why would you give that as being it pretty much said that was the wrong move, even though that's the best move. And knight e3 is the move that the puzzle gives in the course, but it's not even the best move. Okay, generally not a fan of those situations, but okay, what can you do? Looks like rook takes f3 or knight takes d5, some kind of discovered attack on the bishop looks like a good idea. There is also the queen takes h6 move we have to be a little bit careful about, but I think if we move the knight away and then we're threatening queen takes f3, that's a sufficiently big threat, I would think. So knight takes d5 threatens the bishop and knight e3 check. That looks pretty good. Rook takes f3, maybe there is queen takes h6, and then it's kind of muddying the waters, I would say. I think it's knight takes d5. And yeah, it does say that's the answer. And then black has multiple ways to play from here. It says rook takes f3, and then knight takes d5, and queen takes e6 is also a good try, but not clearly winning. Okay, so we played knight takes d5 first instead. Alright, on this one here... I think we check on g4, they take us, we take back, they move the king, we take the bishop, they take back, and then we take on e3 with the bishop. And I think we are, we've won a pawn at the very least. And yeah, so it says the rook cannot be taken, so black has won a pawn for no compensation. The king is also super exposed, and black is in good shape here for sure. Alright. We're either playing e4 or taking on e7 first. Because if the knight wasn't here, you could play knight takes pawn, queen takes, and then take on d6. So if we push the pawn and the knight moves, then we can take on e7 and we're in good shape. If the bishop takes, we can... I think we can just go ahead and check on f6, take the queen, and then we can take the bishop or the knight with a material advantage. So I think we start with e4, and then we take on e7, and then, oh, okay, here we take the queen. Okay. Let's see here. There's a three-piece lineup. The bishop is sort of pinned, but the queen is protecting the rook, so the bishop is free to move away somewhere if it wants to. Question is, where would it go? Like, if I play pawn to f2, I guess the bishop has to take. And then I can play queen takes f2, I guess. Rook takes f3, check, and take the rook. And then I'm not down a piece anymore, I guess. Right now we are currently down a piece. So I think we do that. And then we take the bishop, then we check, and we take the rook. And we are, we're up a pawn, which is good. Okay, let's see. Feels like some kind of line up towards the g7 pawn is on the agenda. Unfortunately, knight e6, the knight takes and defends, and knight f5, again, the knight takes and defends. So what do we do? I don't think we take the pawn first, because after king takes, knight f5, maybe we do actually, because king g8, knight h6 is mate, king g6, knight takes e7, and then we take the queen, and I guess we've won a pawn there. And then if king f7, I guess you could take the pawn, king goes somewhere, take the queen, but then in that particular variation we're down a piece, which is not fantastic. But what we can do, our queen is defended, so queen takes g4 is not actually a huge problem. I think we can take the pawn on c6, and then we can throw in the capture of the knight on e7 after black deals with the mate. So knight takes c6, queen takes g4, knight takes e7, check, then we take back, and then we are up at least one pawn, probably multiple pawns, because we'll also get the g7 pawn. So I think it's knight takes pawn, check, take, and then I think we can take this pawn on top of it. Okay, very good. Yeah, so knight e6 doesn't work, and knight f5 doesn't work. Queen takes g7, almost works. The king goes back, this is mate, but king f7, and here black is going to be a piece up. Okay, so we figured that one out. I think this is bishop c3 check, queen takes c3, a5 check, and then no matter which way the king goes, we win the queen. And we are up a queen. Feels like should be queen h6, but then black plays queen g8, and then what do we do there? I think then we go f4, kick the bishop, and then play e5, and then queen takes f6 is a big problem. So black plays queen to g6. We have queen f8, but they go back to g8. Then we have queen e7. And I think after queen goes back to g6, then we play pawn takes f6. No, then the bishop takes. Let's see. Queen h6, queen g8, f4, bishop takes b2, e5. If pawn takes queen f6 mates. If queen g6, queen f8 check, queen g8. I guess there's queen to b4 actually. I mean, queen to b4. c3, but then c3, right? And then pawn takes f6. I think it looks good for white. I think I'm gonna go for this, check. And then here I wasn't 100% sure about which of these two squares. I'm leaning towards e7, but after the, Oh, then you check on d8, and then you take on f6, yeah. You check here so that the queen has to block, and then you get mate. Okay, very nice. Feels like it should be like a bishop takes knight, rook e7 check, bishop takes, rook takes, and then some kind of mating attack. King h6, queen d4, rook there, queen f6, and then I'm mating. If he doesn't take the rook, let's say king h6, then that's a bit annoying, I will say. Maybe then rook f7 or something. Pretty sure this is the idea. Yeah, so he's not going to take. And I think rook f7. And then I can double up the rooks. Oh, I should not double the rooks. Now I can play queen to d4, threatening this mate. And yeah, black is essentially getting mated here. It looks like rook g8, queen a7, and then you kind of force things on the seventh rank, and you get the mate eventually. Okay. I think we can go bishop to b4. Knight takes b4, rook takes d2, and then I think we're up the exchange there. If we take the pawn, I don't think we're in bad shape, but we're not winning material. If we take the knight, the rook takes first, and then I also don't think we're winning material, so I think it's bishop b4. f7. Did not anticipate that one, but I think we just move the rook over to f8. Oh, no, we don't. We don't do that, because then he could take the bishop, and then the rook is defended. If we take on d2, they make a queen. We take. I guess the knight is still pinned, but we are down a pawn. Excuse me, we are down a pawn in that position. And I guess white would play rook e2. Excuse me, rook e2 to keep the knight protected. Okay, I don't think it's bishop takes d2. But we could take the knight first. We can play rook takes, bishop takes, and then we're up a piece. If the rook goes to e8, we take with our rook, and then we're still up a piece. So I think we take this knight. And then if we take the knight, I guess there is rook to e8. But then we play bishop takes f7, and we should have two pieces for the rook, which is pretty good for us. But maybe there's something better. Rook takes c7 is a pretty annoying threat, I will say. Take here, I guess we take the pawn. I think we take the knight. And then I think we take the pawn. Yeah, and then the bishop pair is going to be better than the rook in this kind of situation. Okay. There's a light up here. This is attacked a couple of times and defended 2 times. I don't know if we take this pawn first or if we take everything on e5 first. If we take this, I guess black takes on b2, which is kind of annoying. But then I guess we take on f5, and we're threatening knight g5 and then checkmate. I think we take f7. I think. It's either take f7 or take e5 first. I don't think we take e5 first, because then the knight protects f7. I think we take f7 first, and then we take e5. Now, I don't know if it matters with which piece we take. Bishop takes hitting the queen is my impression. No, not correct. So then is it rook takes? Oh, that's not correct either. Okay, fair enough. Maybe it's queen takes f5, because then if the rook takes, rook to d8 is mate. And if they take on b2, then rook to d7 and black is getting crushed. So maybe it's this one. And then this is checkmate. Okay, I'm a little bit curious if other moves also won here. I feel like other moves are good too. Okay, bishop takes e5 is plus 1.5, but queen takes f5 is clearly better, so this doesn't work because of, I guess black just takes everything, and then black is worse, but not lost by any means. Whereas if we do it this way, yeah, here white is clearly better, no question. Okay. Feels like d5, and then some kind of discovered attack on the queen. I think we can take with the rook, and then take on b6 or take on d8. And then, yeah, we're up the exchange. Okay. Bishop takes, king takes, queen a2 check. Feels like it should be crushing in some manner. If king f8, there's inevitably some forks on d6 and e6. And a king f6, I think a rook lift should be really strong. Take, check, king f6. There's also e5 check to consider. There's f4, then e5 to consider. f4 might be the simplest. Yeah, I think this is crushing. Oh, he goes back there. Knight e6, rook takes, queen takes, and then bishop d6 is kind of unstoppable. Let's see. If the king f6, it says it can only be refuted in one way. Bishop d8 check, queen e6, knight f3, and a bunch of mates. Interesting. So is f4 not winning? I thought f4 looked pretty good here. Okay, wow. Bishop d8, only move. f4 is not winning due to knight takes f4, at least as an option. And then the king runs. Okay, fair enough. Bishop d8 is a hard move to see, I will say. It makes sense as soon as you see it, but it's not the first instinct or obvious at all, in my opinion. But, okay. Good puzzle. Bishop takes f5. You're threatening bishop g6. If the rook takes, you win the queen. I think that looks pretty clear-cut. And then e7 check. I think e7. Maybe there's other moves that work, but this looks good. Then I think we just take the pawn here, probably. No. Queen e6 is even better. Queen e6, we get mated. Okay, if it's not queen takes g4, guess you can come back to d3 and block off the d file. It does say this is the only winning move. I was rushing there at the end. Not great to rush. Queen h8, king e7. I don't see the knockout blow. Rook takes, knight takes. This is not really being threatened because of this check. You could probably just slow play this and play rook d1 and then queen g5 or queen h4 and try to get to the d8 square, honestly. But probably not the most precise thing to do. So if this rook wasn't here, then queen h8 wins the rook. So I guess rook to c6 actually must work here, because we're threatening to win the knight, and then we're also threatening to eliminate the rook. But he doesn't have to take. He could just move the knight away, but if he moves the knight away, then I think we take on e6. So I think it's rook c6. Take this, and then queen h8, or h7. I guess h8's probably better, because you don't let them take the pawn. And then, yeah, we win the material. Okay, good. What to do here? I think you can do some kind of knight e3. Pawn takes, knight takes, threaten the rook. But then the king just moves away, so we take the rook, they take back, we take the knight, they take, we would be trading pieces essentially, but not really winning anything. There's no great checks. Bishop takes f2, queen takes f2, and the knight is still protected by the bishop. I don't think we're capturing on c6 right away. Knight e3 kind of feels like one of the only threats in the position. So knight e3, pawn takes, knight takes, king h1. I guess then you can also take c6 first, but I think this is it. Is it this one? Oh, okay. It's not either one of those. Fair enough. Not either one of those. I have to reassess. What to do? What to do? White's not really threatening anything themselves, so we do have kind of a free move here. Unfortunately, our rook and queen are kind of frozen. Rook a8, there's knight e7 check, and we lose the rook, and queen f. I guess queen f8's possible, but not really threatening anything. What is it here? What is it? I'm really not seeing any other moves that make threats, quite honestly. Knight d2, the rook takes. Knight e5, the bishop or knight takes. Knight h4, you get captured by the pawn. Knight d4, you get captured by a bunch of stuff. I don't see any great queen moves. Again, I don't think it's bishop takes f2, but maybe, hold on, maybe it is bishop takes f2. Okay, maybe it is bishop takes f2, because after the queen takes, then you play knight to e3, and both the rook and the pawn, rook and bishop are hit. And if I can get rid of the bishop, then the knight's hanging. So I think you do actually play bishop. Okay, you don't play that either. So then what are you playing here? I think I already tried the knight moves. Okay. It says queen f8 is best, but anything other than the main line that does not seem bad gives full points. So this is one of the puzzles where, I think this is one of the puzzles where we just have to make a good move and not make a blunder. That seems to be the case on this particular one. Hey, Captain Tim. Hi, Dalton. I'm still working on the first Woodpecker first Woodpecker video, but best wishes for the rest of your run. Yeah, glad to hear that you're, doing the work of going through it. I think it is good practice and good training, so good on you for working through it. Yeah, no need to worry about any kind of speed or anything like that. I think the most important thing is to, be as, let's say, be as methodical about it as you can. Don't feel like you have to rush through it. It's better to take a little bit of time on a puzzle and get it correct than to spend it, or than to rush through it and get it wrong and not really learn a whole lot from it. It's also fine if you take a long time and don't get it correct, but the effort and the work of putting in, working through things and trying to solve it is better than just rushing through it at the end of the day, for sure. Yeah, thank you very much for the well wishes. So, okay, what's wrong with bishop takes f2? I was thinking knight at e3. I didn't think that this was the best way to go. It says knight e3 is tempting but bad, and Kramnik fell for it. Take, bishop d4. Okay. I did miss this idea, I will say. And then, yeah, black is losing the knight because the knight is kind of trapped here. Okay, what was wrong with bishop takes f2, and then knight e3. I'm going to assume there is something wrong with it, but take, knight e3, rook moves, take, rook g4. White has to find specifically rook d4 to g4, which is not easy to find whatsoever. And then has to also find queen f6, which is not terribly difficult. And then apparently white's better in a position like this. That is a lot of moves that white needs to find to not even end up in a completely winning position. I don't know. I feel like I might have gambled here. I feel like I might have gambled on this one, quite honestly. I don't think that's a great way to play chess, is to play something hoping your opponent won't find the best move, but it is not very clear-cut as to why, here white has to play rook to d4, rook to c1. I thought we were just taking here. Oh, the computer's starting to, like, make mistakes now. Okay, anyway, so apparently this one is not really a tactic. It's more so you have to avoid making a bad tactic is the idea on this one. Okay, is this the same puzzle again, or queen f8, right? Okay. I don't know, did it just make me solve it 2 times in a row? That's kind of odd. Now I'm actually curious. Okay, never mind. Queen f8. Okay, let's go. Let's see. If I take on e4, white takes on c4 with check and then takes back, and doesn't feel fantastic. But the knight is pinned, right? So I could just think about moving the bishop away somewhere. But then white's going to take on g4. Essentially, white needs to take on g4 to avoid losing a piece if we do nothing here, but so knight f2 then. Is knight f2 just good? You move the knight to safety, add another attacker to the knight. The knight is pinned. If he takes our knight, we win the queen. We don't want to go knight f6 because they take with a check, but knight f2 looks like a decent idea. And then we're threatening like bishop d3 and taking this, and I think white is in big trouble there. Yeah, so I think we go, well, we don't go bishop e3 here because then they would take our knight, but I think we can now play... Actually, that's a good question. If we take, they take. But then we play queen takes and we're up a piece. If we take, they play bishop takes. Hold on, let's be precise here. Could take here, rook takes, and the knight is still pinned, but if we play knight takes, they play bishop takes, and they're trying to pick this guy up. So knight to d3 also looks good. Maybe knight d3 is the way to go. Probably it's knight d3. Yeah, we move the knight to safety, the rook moves, hit the queen again. Eventually we will take the knight on e4 and come out of this ahead a piece. Okay. I feel like this is from the World Championship match between Kramnik and Anand, right? So I feel like I've seen this game before, but I definitely don't remember the puzzle. I do think it's knight takes d4 and then rook to d1 though, then we pick up the knight. So I think that's the way to do it. No, it's not that. Do we take the knight first and then take on d4? If you take on d7, then they play bishop takes f3. And that doesn't seem to solve any of our problems. Probably the trick here is if I take and then play rook to d1, there is knight to e5. And then if I check, I can't take the queen. Oh, I guess I could. There's... Okay, hold on. So it's not knight takes d4, even though that looks reasonable. Bishop takes d7, they will take on f3, and then d7. And I don't really see anything special there. Maybe the position is still good, but it is definitely not a knockout blow. What else did we play? We're pretty much never taking on e6, I don't think. Black can just take with the queen. And so what do we do instead here then? Maybe it is bishop takes d7? It says alternative. Okay. I don't know, knight g5 or something? Whenever I already find one alternative, I start kind of just making other moves that seem reasonable. Rook d1 or something, I push the a-pawn. I mean, if I found a move that's already good enough... Okay, it's going to give me the answer. It says take a full point for any non-blundering move. It does say knight takes d4 is a blunder. And then black does have this knight f6 move, and we are running into trouble here. Apparently this is the way the game went. Knight takes d4, rook d1, knight f6. All of this occurred, and then this knight e3 move was a killer, and now black wins because pawn to e2 is an unstoppable threat. But essentially, yeah, it says take a full point for any non-blundering move. So rook d1 is fine, a5 is fine, anything that doesn't blunder or something is fine here. Bishop takes d7 is also fine. For a course, this is kind of a bit of an annoying type puzzle. In a book, I could see this being totally fine, but when I have to play something on the board and then remember the best, like, I have to now, for the purposes of the Woodpecker method drilling side of things, I have to remember that knight to d2 is the move the course wants, even though it is not the only good move in the position, which is kind of annoying, I would say. Okay, anyways, though. I think we take on g2, check on h3, and then we are checkmating from there for sure. There is knight to g3, I guess. I have to be a bit careful about that. Bishop takes g2, knight to g3. I guess you play bishop f3, knight takes rook, knight takes back. I feel like white's just getting crushed there. Queen to b3. I mean, now it feels like I can move the rook just about anywhere. I don't want to move the queen in, I don't think, because of bishop takes f7. But even that looks pretty good. So maybe I do this anyways. They're going to take on f3, though. They're going to take here and then take on f3. And that kind of muddies the water. But then I take back and I'm threatening queen g2. So I think it is queen h3. Okay. Find an alternative move. All right. I will try to do that. Rook h4. Rook h4. Now we go queen h3 probably. Then we go to h7 or h8. I don't know if it matters. I guess I'd go to h7. Yeah, so taking g2 is definitely the way to go here. And then I think bishop f3 is definitely best. And then I think you have multiple moves that are good from here. Queen h3, what I wanted to play is good. Rook h4 is good. Again, you're having to solve a puzzle where there's multiple moves that are good, which is always, you know, a bit frustrating. But anyways, though, Um, what do we do here? Queen e4 pinning the knight seems rather annoying. Okay, white's down the exchange for very little, if any, compensation. I'd probably just go queen e4 and then pick up the e5 pawn pretty soon. I mean, this pin is so strong. I mean, something better is available, but again, it's feels like you can do just about anything and have a pretty large advantage. Hey there, Torty Ritz. What emoji is that? Is that the shrug emoji? How are you doing today? Good to see you. Good to see you. Okay, there's no great checks. Check, the rook takes. I don't think we're taking the pawn. I mean, it doesn't feel like the way to go here, in my opinion. I don't think we're taking this pawn. I could see taking the f2 pawn. That's not the silliest capture in the world. You could check on c2 afterwards. The king retreats somewhere. Maybe you can work your way in with rook to c8 or something. So knight takes f2 is an option. In terms of threats, can we attack something that's undefended or a high-value piece? I don't see a great way to threaten the h-pawn from this current moment. I don't think we're going to use either of the rooks to hit the queen because the bishop covers the b8 square. Knight to c5. Worst case scenario for black, they could just trade for all I know. And I think it might be knight takes f2. King takes, check, king g1. But then after that, I'm not seeing a knockout blow. Queen d1. Oh, queen d1. If they go to f2, we take the rook. If they go to g2, we check on e2 and take f3. Okay, so it is this. Check, check. And the important point is they can't go to f2 because we can take the rook. Okay. So, yeah, so I think here, I don't know if this is the best approach to solving tactics where you're not really sure what to do. And I'm not, there are plenty of tactics in this course that I have had no idea what to do and still haven't solved them. But knight takes f2 was definitely not a move that was on my radar at the start. But once I kind of took a almost like brute force approach here, I looked at all the checks, I looked at all the captures, I looked at all the threats. Once I saw the capture of knight takes f2, I started to kind of see some ways that that might work out, even though I don't think I was taking a look at knight takes f2 in the first position at all. And once I started to entertain the option of knight takes f2, then I was able to work it out. So that was kind of a brute force method, you could call it here. I think this one we take the bishop, then the pawn, and then there's not a great way to guard both pieces. Okay, we don't want to take because they'll take with check. I think we can just move the knight away almost anywhere. Maybe we want to keep the a-pawn protected, but I don't know, rook a4, I guess? But then the knight, well, yeah, rook a4, I guess, oh no, we'll get mated. They'll check us and mate us on g1, so we need to stay on the back rank. I guess we're just rook b1. Yeah, rook b1 looks fine. Rook to d6. But I think we are just taking the knight, right? We take the knight. If they take on d2, then we take the queen on b2. Yeah, rook takes d2. We are ahead the bishop here. Okay. We can take f6. We can take d6. h6 is also hit. There's these two checks. I don't think we check on g7. Maybe we do, though, because we do get d6. Take on f6 feels a little tame. Kind of gives black a free move at that point. So I don't think it's taking on f6, at least not with the knight. don't think it's checking on g7 because then black starts to attack us themselves. So I don't think it's a check here. The only other captures are these, where I don't think we're giving the queen up for the pawn, and I don't think we're doing this because we run out of steam, I believe. So then threats. Knight to d5, knight to e4. These both open up the bishop to help attack f6. Knight to b5 is also an option. Knight d5, pawn takes, knight takes, bishop takes. But then the rook moves, and I don't think we have enough juice or attack there. I don't think we do. But maybe it's knight d5, pawn takes, bishop takes. If knight takes check, and then that's mate. That looks good. If pawn takes, bishop takes, we're threatening knight g7. If the rook moves, knight g7 wins the queen. I think that's going to be it here. Yeah, okay, there we are. All right. Rook takes, queen check, king e8. We have some additional checks there, but I don't think we have mate. Rook check, king g7. I don't really see a great follow-up check. Actually, hold on. There is bishop h6, king takes, rook h8, king g7. There is mate. If king g5, I don't see a mate, right? Rook g8, bishop takes, right? There's no more checks. f4, there's knight takes. Okay. I don't think that works. Check there, check there. Feels like he runs away. Yeah, I don't think that works. So rook takes f7 was the other move I was looking at. So rook takes f7, king takes, queen h7, king e8. I think black wants to keep the king on a light square to avoid the bishop checks. So king e8, queen g8, king d7, queen f7, knight e7, bishop b4. But then queen c1 check and queen f4 check wins the bishop, so that's bad. We're up the exchange down 2 pawns, so material's equal, but king is exposed. Light square bishop's not great. Again, you could probably slow play the position and just make some small improvement move, and you're probably better, I would assume, but I'm gonna guess here. I don't really see the answer on this one. Hold on. So let me just go through and try to brute force it. So we have 3 checks. Rook b8 check, queen g6, and queen h7. Queen g6 is not the answer. Queen h7, king takes. We take the bishop. The king moves. There's no more follow-up. So it's not a queen check on move 1. Rook b8. If black blocks with the bishop, we have queen to g6, and that seems sufficiently annoying. Maybe it's still not winning, but it's at least an idea. If rook b8 and king g7, the only other follow-up check I see is bishop's h6 that's any good. King takes, rook h8, king g5. I think we start running out of checks at that point, or at least good checks that I can see. So if it's not a check on move 1, then rook takes f7 is the only capture that's available. King takes f7, queen h7, king e8, queen. We can take h5 and h4, but then we're not ahead material. So queen g8, king d7, queen f7, knight e7, bishop b4 loses a piece. If we're not doing that, then I think we're just down 2 pawns. So it's not rook b8. It's not rook takes f7. I don't think it's either one of those. There's not really anything that's hanging or an easy way to make a big threat, as far as I'm aware. So I think I would check on b8. Not the answer. I don't think it's rook takes f7 either. So it might, for all I know, it might be a puzzle where you just have to make a small improvement move. Maybe just bishop h6. I mean, bishop h6 looks good. I wouldn't call this... Yeah, I mean, okay, I guess it is the best move. I don't know. Rook b8 check, rook b6. Queen b2 hits the f6 pawn and looks reasonable as well. It feels hard to think that there's one absolute best move here. I don't know. Rook b8 check, knight blocks. Maybe I go queen to b2, rook b8. Not 100% sure on this one, unfortunately. It's not that easy to get to the G file to give a check. All of these are covered. I don't know. Did I already try rook b6? I'm not sure. Queen to b4, threatening queen f8. Okay. The game continued rook a7, which is also winning, and white eventually won this way. Queen to b4, queen f8. Okay, I think this is pretty clearly the best way. Okay, fair enough. So, I mean, is bishop h6 the only good move here? Again, I can imagine it is best. Yeah. And then I guess after knight c7, is queen b4 the only good move? It is clearly best. Okay, that's lazy of me. Positions where there's multiple good-looking moves are always very difficult, especially if you're not really seeing a reason as to why one specific move is bad or anything like that. Okay, anyways, let's keep going. Both of our rooks are hit, which is dangerous. So taking the bishop is a no-go. This is pretty tricky, because if we take their bishop, they take with check, and then they take g2 or something like that, and it looks quite bad. How do we even make a threat here? Bishop takes f8 feels like kind of the only way to make a threat. But I think black beats us to the punch by taking on f1 with check, and then taking on g2 with the rook or bishop. Probably the rook. And then we check on the h-file, they move the king, and then there's a bunch of different discovered checks that are available. And that looks pretty scary. So what do we do here? Could just be rook g1 for all I know. Like rook g1, if they take, we hit the rook. And then if they don't take us on d1, we move the rook to safety. It doesn't feel like the best way to do things, but it seems maybe sufficient. I don't think we take on f8 because this looks to be a problem, unless I'm missing something. Queen h5 check, king g8, and then there's all these discovered checks that look like they're going to crush us. Do we have rook to g1 there? Maybe we have rook to g1. Maybe that works? Does that work? Okay, it doesn't want that as the answer anyways. I think it's maybe rook g1. Yeah, it's rook g1 as more of a defensive measure, you could call it. And then I guess we just block the pawn? So this one's more of a defensive sequence rather than a tactical sequence. The game continued, bishop takes f8, and the game was drawn later on. It says bishop g5, white is also slightly better, but the game goes on. Rook g1 is best, and then it says white's winning here. Yeah, so it's more of a defensive sequence than an offensive one. Okay, this feels like e6, blocking off the bishop from protecting f7, and then I think black is just getting crushed there, I believe. There is bishop takes e4, queen check, king h8, bishop takes, queen takes. Maybe not, actually. Maybe not. Could also be knight e6. Actually, knight e6 looks really good because you hit the queen and threaten queen takes f7. I think that's the way to go. And then you get the queen. Okay, good. We can maybe grab a pawn. I'm not seeing a reason why it's bad, but I don't think it's best. If our knight was gone, rook f4, kick the queen, e4, and discovered attacks would be a big problem. So I wonder if we can take the pawn and then play rook f4. And then white's probably just in bad shape there. Maybe that's the way to do it. Not rook f4. Oh, it's rook takes f3. Sorry, rook takes f3, then e4. Okay, so it's all about getting the queen off of the e4 square. That's the key. All right. Rook takes, king takes, bishop d4 check. Black, I don't know, blocks with f6 or knight f6 or something. We take a1, they take back. It looks like just equal material there. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? What are we doing here? Rook h8 check, bishop takes, rook takes, king takes, bishop d4, king g8. I don't see a follow-up. Bishop h6, I think black just takes on h7. What to do? Rook takes g7, king takes g7, bishop d4 check, black blocks, then queen e3, trying to get to h6 looks pretty good actually. If rook h8, we trade rooks, take e7, take f6, we're in good shape. Okay, I think it is rook takes g7, and then check. But you're trying to get to the e3 square is the key. And now you're getting to h6, or you're pretty much just breaking through at this point. Yeah, white's in good shape here. Okay, good. Feels like bishop g5 is my assumption. If we take, queen takes, I don't really see any particularly special moves there. So bishop g5, if the queen takes, we win the rook. If the queen moves away, we trade, and then we have bishop e7 to fork the queen and the rook. If they play f6, then I guess we just take the pawn, and it looks like a bad position for black. So I think that this is the way to go. Win the queen, and you have a queen versus rook and knight, which is good for us. Somehow black drew this game, but white should be better here. Okay. E5, pawn takes, knight e4, queen moves, knight g5 check, and then f5 or something that looks very bad for white, or very bad for black. Do I trade queens and then take the pawn or something else? Queen to g8 looks crushing because you're mating on h7. What you have to figure out is if this check is a problem. King f2 or king f1, they check here. That is an issue. But I think we go to h1 and there's no more check. So I think it's queen g8. In the game, black took this way, and then black eventually ran out of checks. Okay. I think we can take on b3 and on d3 and then rook to b3 on this one. And then we're up. Fair enough. Didn't look at that. Queen a4, I think, works. Yeah. Okay. Rook takes c2, king takes c2, rook c8 check. King has to go up to d3 or something like that. It looks very bad. But maybe not game over just yet. Rook takes, rook check, king d3. It looks really, really bad, though. Like, queen takes a2, or if we can get the queen to c4, that's mate. So queen to b4, and then I think we're mating. I think that. Take, check there, b3, then queen to d4, then e3. Yeah, there's no way that's not crushing. Oh, wow, we don't check there. Queen a2 first? Okay, queen a2 also makes sense. Yeah, so it's queen takes a2 is the only other move that makes any sense. I wonder if rook to c8 is not winning here. Rook c8, king d3. I was thinking queen to b4, but I guess there's king e2, right? There's king e2 and he can run away, kind of. But then we take on b2, so I don't know. Is queen to b4? Yeah, queen to b4 is not winning here. Oh, the king just goes back to rook to c8. The king just goes back to b1. What am I talking about? That's pretty silly. Yeah, you just go back to b1. You take a2 to keep him off of the b1 square. Okay, pretty obvious in hindsight. This one looks like queen f6. Bishop takes, knight takes, or just knight f6 right away. Knight f6, bishop takes, queen takes. He gets a check. On e1, we move. He checks on d6. We play g3. But then he has queen e5. Hold on. He has queen e5 there. So maybe it is queen f6. Queen f6, bishop takes, knight takes, king moves. But then if we take the queen, they take our rook with check. Get good, bro? Yeah. There, g3, queen e5. Yeah, that's bad. Oh, we have f4, though. We play f4 to stop queen e5. Okay, I think that's the key. No, not it. Surprising. I guess queen goes back to f8, and black has two rooks for a queen. Okay, queen f6. Bishop takes, knight takes. Rook d1 first, maybe. Yeah, it's probably a case here where we don't need to jump the gun on the check. That makes a lot of sense. Get off of the e-file, and then you play knight f6 next move, pretty much. And then it's game over. We're down a pawn, but we have compensation. I think it's pretty clear-cut that black's kingside and dark squares are very bad. Okay, yeah, very nice. This one feels like d3. And then d2, if the rook stays on the c-file. So d3, if he checks on c8, we don't even need to take it. We could actually play king f7, and then we're threatening to take on c2. And I think that works for us. I think it's d3. I think here we don't take the rook, though. If we do take the rook, they check, and then they play king f2, and we're not really winning anything. So I think we actually play king f7 or knight e8. I would assume king f7, and then king to g6. And then the problem is if they take the rook, we push, and they can't stop rook takes c1, and they can't stop the pawn from promoting on d1 also. So here I think we play. Okay, I hadn't thought this one through fully. I think we take on c1 and then play d2. Yeah, I think that's the idea. And then they lose one of the two rooks here, and we'll be up a piece. Okay, good. Feels like some kind of e5 pawn takes, like knight e4. And then I feel like we're just crashing through. We're going to take f6, get rid of the protection on g7. I think we really just beat black to the punch here. Queen to d8, I guess, but then there's like h6, g6, take f6, take e5, dark squares are bad. I would assume it's e5 and then knight e4, but maybe there's something better. Could also be e5 and then queen e4. Queen e4 also looks very, very dangerous. Could be h6 on move 1, but then black plays g6, and I'm not seeing the follow-up there right away. Arrows hurt you. Yeah, I think it's e5 and then knight e4. Queen e4 also looks good, though. Queen e4, king g8. Oh, but after king g8, we have queen h7, king f8, bishop c5 check, and then no matter what they block with or move, we have mate. Okay, so I think it's e5. Yeah, e5, queen e4, and then if the king tries to escape, then bishop c5. I think you can check first and then play bishop c5 as well. Yeah, it says or queen h7, checkmating. Okay, good. Rook on a5 is awkwardly placed, but first impression is... Okay, I won't use arrows here for you, Ernesto. Knight g4 is dangerous. White has to play g3. And then we take on g3 and then play queen h6, and I don't know, it feels like white's just getting crushed. Knight g4, g3, take g3. If they play h takes, we have queen h6 to h2, and looks very, very bad. White's pieces are pretty far from the king side. I think I would do this without even a whole lot of calculation. And then probably just take. I guess queen f6 actually is maybe also better. Queen f6, and you can't really guard the f2 pawn. That looks even better. And yeah, this is game over. f2 is undefendable. Queen h4, take knight, we take back. Looks dangerous, but I don't see an immediate win. The rook on e5 is kind of in the way. If that rook was gone, we could play e5 and open up the bishop, which would be pretty strong. Knight takes, h7, king takes, queen h4, king g8. I don't see the follow-up there. If we play knight f3 on move 1, he plays c2, which is kind of annoying. What do we do? Queen h4, take knight, take back. I don't see the win. Queen h4, take knight f4, maybe? But then he takes on g5. Rook takes, trade, don't see the win. Also, sorry, we can't even play f4, the f-pawn's pinned. G6. Maybe. Yeah, no, G6 is definitely an option. If the f-pawn takes, then we have some knight moves and we can capture f8. Looks dangerous. If they take the knight on f6, G6, they take the knight. I guess you have queen 8 or queen h4. There's f takes, right? So maybe pawn takes h7, king takes, queen h4, bishop h6. G6. Can't figure out what if he ignores. If he ignores, we might just take the h7 pawn, but he could play like c2 or, you know, he could throw in some threats or something of his own. G6 is an interesting idea. It could be the answer for sure. It feels slightly slow though, but maybe it's just adding more kind of fuel to the fire, so to speak. What to do? That sequence looks nice. Bishop takes f6, rook g8. That looks good. Okay, so maybe taking on f6 doesn't work for white, or for black. But what does he play otherwise? F takes, we have like, I don't know, probably many good moves with the f file open. Knight takes h7 seems decent. If h takes g6, queen h4 is winning material. Okay, yeah, I think it is g6 here. It looks like this adds the most fuel to the fire. And now the question is, where do we move the knight away to? Knight takes h7 and then queen takes f8 looks pretty good. Could also even do rook takes g6. I mean, that's also possible since, I guess h takes g6, queen h4, there's rook h5. So I don't know, maybe that's not worth it. Knight g4, they play rook e8. I think it's knight takes h7. I mean, it feels like we might as well just pick up a pawn and open the king up. Okay, so let's find an alternative. Fair enough. Knight d7, right? Knight d7 actually looks good. You fork both pieces and then queen takes f8. It does say full points for knight takes and then knight f8. But okay. Knight e8, they had rook takes protecting the bishop. So yeah, knight d7 I think is the one it looked like there. I think we can take f6, check on e7 if the rook blocks take on h4, and if the king moves take on f6. I think this is picking up a piece. Good. Rook takes h5, there's rook takes d1. We don't want to do that. We can take on d8 first, but I don't think that changes a ton. We can take on g7 two different ways. There's bishop takes g7 and queen takes g7. Queen takes g7, knight takes g7, rook takes h6, king g8. We could try to double the rooks up on the h-file threatening mate, but then I think black plays like rook to d1 check, pulls the rook away, and then takes on e5, and we're just busted. So I don't think it's queen takes g7. But knight takes, or bishop takes g7 is an option. Bishop takes, knight takes, rook takes h6, king moves, double the rooks. Black plays f6. F6 kind of defends decently. Bishop g7, rook d8, queen h4. Queen h4. And rook takes d8 throwing in there. Because if you can take with the queen on h6, it's lights out. So do you take d8 first or take g7 first? That's part of the question here. I would venture to guess that we want to take on g7, but what if we take on g7 and they play king h7 and they just don't take right away? Maybe then it is important to have taken on d8 because we can move the queen away and attack the rook. I think we want to take on d8 first. And then g7. And then here we can play queen h4 to hit the rook. No, queen h4 is not the best move. Okay, queen to c7 also hits the rook. Queen c7 is better. It says queen h4, rook d2, white one from here pretty much. So queen c7 and queen h4, they both work. The main point is we're hitting the rook on d8. Yeah, it looks like if you take on g7 first, the king moves to h7, and then we can't take on d8 with check. Our queen is being hit at the same time here in that situation. Yeah, we don't want to forget that our queen on g3 is being attacked by the knight on h5 in this situation. Okay, what to do on this one? Knight takes d5, pawn takes... So there is, if these guys are gone, there is this lineup. Saw the pattern, turn the brain off, yeah. So knight e5 or knight takes d5 first become potential options in that because of that. If knight takes d5, if pawn takes, we have knight to e5, but he doesn't have to take the knight. He can move the queen away, and then I don't know if we've gained a ton. There's no great checks. The only things we can really consider capturing are d5 and e4. I don't think we take on e4, because after queen takes, I don't really see a follow-up. Or the rook can take on e4. a4 rook is undefended, which seems like useful information here. f4 and e4 pawns are somewhat pinned, sort of. We can't go knight e5 on move 1 because he takes on f6, then takes on e5. So we could take on e5, take on d5 and then knight e5. But then queen e4, f5, and the queen is actually sort of running into trouble. Take, knight e5. There's queen to d1, I guess. But then we trade queens, play knight c4, and then white loses. So I think if we take on d5... Yeah, if queen takes d5, there's bishop takes b2, and it's a pawn. I think if pawn takes d5, we have knight e5. Yeah, that's part of it here. Like, because it's a puzzle, there's really only this knight takes d5 move to consider. Nothing else really seems to work. I think if the pawn takes, I think the important point there is we play knight to e5, and we take advantage of this lineup, I believe. Yeah. And it said short or white has no good moves. Queen moves away to play knight c4, which is strong. Queen moves to d1. You trade here and play knight g4 or knight c4. You know, bishop moves. We're up a pawn. I solved it right away and was paranoid. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I saw the whole idea and then I had to double check. Okay. Take d4. Bishop takes back. Okay, I think it's take d4, bishop a2, and then b3. I feel like I've seen this pattern before. I don't know if I've seen this position, but I've seen this like take a2, b3, queen a5, take d2 thing before. I think you start with bishop takes d4 though. If you take a2 and then play b3, the knight can take and cover the a5 square. Yeah, I think you take d4, take a2, b3. Oh, queen a5 first. Queen a5 and then b3. And then you got the rook. Okay, cool. Bishop takes f8 is a move to look at. The king would have to take. That's right, too easy for us Woodpecker guys. Bishop takes f8, king takes f8. There's also rook takes d1, which kind of pulls our pieces into awkward locations. I could take on d5 first. Bishop takes d5, bishop takes back. He is threatening bishop e4, which is kind of annoying. So I wonder if rook takes, bishop takes, king takes. I mean, I could take on e4 or on d5 with the bishop and then play f3 and then just play a position where I'm up the exchange for a pawn. Looks fine. I don't think I play bishop takes f8 on move 1 because rook takes d1. If queen takes d1, we lose our attack. If bishop takes, there's bishop e4. Oh, hold on. I think we play just rook takes d5 and then rook to h5, and then we have this skewer. No. Why would that not be winning? I'm not really sure. Rook takes d5 and rook h5, and I think we just are winning a piece. Oh, he has bishop takes f3, rook takes g5, bishop e4. Okay, fair enough. Maybe it is some kind of rook takes d5, bishop takes, take f8 first, king takes, then rook h5. But then he still plays bishop takes f3. Oh, I see what you're saying. Rook takes d5, bishop takes rook h5. Yeah, he can take h5 and bishop e4. You're correct. It would be a trade of pieces, but not winning anything. Yeah, he can. I think he can take f3 and then go back to e4 as well. I think that also works. So what if I do... The king on b1 is very annoying. If the king was on a1, I think life is pretty good. But let's see. We can take on f8 at some point in here. I feel like in a game I play bishop takes d5 and then play f3, and I just, you know, I take my extra exchange and go with it. I guess black has 2 pawns, though, so it's pretty annoying. Man, I'm really not sure on this one. The best I can come up with is either bishop takes d5, which doesn't feel like the answer. Or at least, let's say, bishop takes d5 and then f3. That doesn't feel like the answer. Maybe bishop takes d5 and then something else is possible. Oh, hold on. It's bishop takes d5, but then it's f4. I think we take the rook, but then we try to kick the queen away from protecting the bishop. I think this is it. No, that's not it either. Bishop takes knight, I thought rook to d1. And then if the queen takes, we're no longer hitting h7. If the bishop takes, there's bishop e4. And if the rook takes, again, we're no longer hitting h7. And if queen, if queen or rook takes, they can also throw in the move bishop takes f3. That's what I thought. I mean, maybe I glossed over Bishop takes f8, but... Very annoying. Okay, I'm going to try bishop takes f8. Okay, it's not bishop takes f8. Feels like some of the kind of rook h5, take d5, f4 maybe idea. I think I already tried bishop takes d5. I don't think that worked. Rook takes d5. Bishop takes d5. Bishop d2, but then he still takes on f3 and then plays bishop back to e4. I don't know. Maybe I don't think it's rook h5 on move 1 because of rook takes d1 check, but I'm really struggling to see other moves that are good. It's not bishop takes f8. It's not taking on d5 with the bishop. Could be rook takes d5, but then I don't exactly see the follow-up after that. Like rook e1. I mean, could just be some kind of rook e1 type of move or something. Feels very slow, but, you know, maybe black is struggling to defend or something. I don't know. Let's say rook e1. Okay, rook e1, interesting. Okay, but see, the problem is it's one of these puzzles where, you know, any move that does not exchange too many pieces earns a full point. So, kind of any move is good, apparently. I'm not really sure why bishop takes d5 would be bad on move 1. Yeah, I mean, rook e1 makes sense, no question about it. We're threatening rook e8, and if the rooks get traded, then we can maybe still get to the e8 square. I don't know. Let's check this with the computer, I guess. Yeah, rook e1. Bishop takes d5, and then f3 is also better for white as well. But rook e1 is a bit more precise. Rook takes e1, rook takes e1. Yeah, I guess he has to. He can't stop both of these threats. Queen to d8, you win the exchange. So I guess you're trading a pair of rooks while winning the exchange, whereas if you take on d5 on move 1, you're still winning the exchange, but you're not getting a pair of rooks traded guaranteed. The computer is messing up here. There's no way black's better in this position. There's no way that's the case. Okay. I think it's knight takes g3 and f4 on this one. That seems pretty clear cut. See, we go from a puzzle like the previous one, which was just like, you know, much more difficult, to something like knight takes g3 f4 that just wins like very easily. So again, the difficulty level's a bit all over the place. Yeah, still a dangerous position. Our queen is hit. Behind the queen is the knight. Rook takes g6. Looks like at least a move worth considering. Pawn takes, queen takes, king h8. At the very least, you have a perpetual check, which is not so bad. I guess king f7, queen e5. Or no, then we have knight takes e5. That's bad for black. Yeah, okay. I don't know. Rook takes g6 looks reasonable. Rook takes, pawn takes, queen takes, king h8. Then you even have rook takes e5 and the rook comes to h5. I think that's game over. Check, check, takes, and yeah, rook h5 is coming. Okay, good. I feel like this is a famous game, but I don't remember. I feel like this is a blitz game though, so probably not that famous. I think it's knight takes e6, and you're threatening knight c7 and bishop h5 if the knight is captured. Here, I assume you can just check on c7 or something like that. Both knights are hit. It's a little bit awkward, but I think you just check. No, something better. Okay. Is it knight d6 check? Bishop takes, queen takes, and then some kind of follow-up there. Oh, knight f6 check, right? Knight f6, if knight takes, then knight c7 and queen d6. And if king e7, queen d6. Okay, this is game over. Knight takes, check here, and mate. Okay. This looks like f4, queen takes, rook e4, queen moves double the rooks, and then f4 a second time. I could maybe play f4 right away. f4 right away, there's knight f3 check, queen takes, I lose the rook, so I need to double up first. Yeah, very important to not rush f4 because of knight f3 check here, and then the rook on a1 is a problem. Okay, good to see that. Rook e3, pawn takes, queen takes f3, queen to d2 or c2, and then I think we take g3 and e3, and black's just crushing there, it looks like. Yeah. The game went like this, and bishop e4 is going to finish things off. We have queen b1 or bishop takes h7 first. Bishop takes h7, king takes, queen b1, we take on b6, and then I think we're just up a pawn. It's a little dicey to give up the light square bishop because the king is a bit exposed, I will say, but I think we can make it work. Hey, Aslanga, I have bought your Ready Nimza Larson and French courses. When you get a spare moment, can you explain whether we should always recommend starting with the quick starter guide? Yeah, I would generally start with the, assuming you haven't gone through any of the course just yet, I would always start with the quick starter guide first. My general recommendation in terms of working through any chessable course that is like an opening focus course would be to go through the quick starter guide first before you play any games. So go through the quick starter. And then once you've gone through the quick starter and learned that, then I would focus on jumping right into playing games, like blitz games online or rapid games or whatever time control you want to go for. Practice games, essentially. And then as you are playing those practice games, if the move played by your opponent in the game does not match with what was in the quick starter guide, then try to see if it's in, one of the other chapters of the course, then go reference the course at that point. And then you kind of just keep repeating the process. So you play a game, check it in the course. If they played something you're already familiar with, that's great. If they played a move that you hadn't looked at in the course yet, go study that particular variation or that line. And then, once you feel like you have a handle on that new line, then go play more games and, rinse and repeat the process. I think a lot of people make the mistake of going through the quick starter, then going through chapter 1 right away, then chapter 2, then chapter 3, and they try to go through the whole course kind of in a row. But I think it's important to start with the quick starter, then start playing games as quickly as you can. That's what I would get into playing games quickly. I think this is bishop h7, queen b1, queen b6. Okay. Hello, Tomahawk Creek Middle School. Hello, FM Dalton Perrine. Very good and educational stream. You just started a new subscriber. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Curious question. Where are you from? I asked a few friends. They've never heard of you. I'm from Florida originally, and I'm currently living in Ohio. So, Florida in the United States. That's where I was born and grew up and played at chess mostly for, I don't know, about 20 27-ish years of my life. And then around 2021, I moved out of Florida and eventually got to Ohio. So Florida people will know me for sure. And then also, I think there's at least some, some decent amount of people around the tournament circuit who have heard my name from just playing me or seeing me on the score tables and stuff like that. I think it's g5 here, taking advantage of the pin. If bishop e7, we take the bishop. Here, I guess we... Oh, hold on. This one's tricky. If we take f8, he has bishop c5 check. But I think we can throw in the check on e6 first. And then if the king moves to the h-file, then we play rook to h1 or something like that. Yeah. We don't want to take f8 and then bishop c5 works. Oh, you're welcome, Asanga. Thanks for the compliment. That's nice of you. Knight takes d4, rook takes d4, queen c6, followed by rook a8 looks good, but black has a free move to defend. e5, kicking the rook away from protecting either d4 or c6 looks good. So like e5, rook d5, queen takes c6 looks very strong. e5, rook d7, you trade rooks and take on d4 looks very strong. I think it's e5. Could also be some kind of weird rook a8, but rook a8 also looks very good too, I will say. Rook a8, they take, we win the d4 pawn next, and I think that's also very strong. That might be even cleaner. I guess. I don't know. Is this the way to do it? e5 is probably better. And yeah, okay. So it is e5. In the game, Anand played rook a8, and then black was able to equalize. But white won the game. So, okay. Feels like some rook takes f3 idea, but not sure if it works immediately. Rook takes, pawn takes, rook takes, queen takes, bishop takes, take on d1. Yeah, I think it is rook takes f3. And then you get the rook on d1 is the important point. Okay. Bishop takes b2, and then queen to e5, but then there's bishop f3. Bishop f3 is annoying. But we can play rook h4, threatening the rook on b2, and bishop takes h3, which looks strong. You can also take on h3 on move 1. I don't know if the move order must matter here. It's probably bishop takes h3 on move 1. Oh, wow. It's neither one of those. Okay. My mistake. Surprising. I feel like that's winning, unless I'm just completely missing something. But, okay, anyways. g5. I mean, could take e2 first, but I don't think that does much for us. I think I already tried bishop takes h3. I tried bishop takes b2. There's no checks. There's no other captures. There's rook d4, but then the knight blocks. I don't think that does a lot for us. I guess you could start with rook h4, and then it's difficult for white to deal with bishop takes h3, I guess. Maybe that's the answer. That feels a little slow, but... Okay, it says find an alternative. So rook h4 is good, but something better. I don't know. What are we doing that's better? I think I already tried bishop takes h3. What is this one? What is this one here? I don't know. I'm really not sure. I feel like all the moves I tried are some of the main forcing moves. I don't think it's rook takes e2. I don't think it's rook d4. Rook h4 is set as an alternative. I think I already tried bishop takes h3. Alright, it's one of the puzzles where it says give yourself full points for every other normal move. For example, bishop e6. Apparently bishop takes b2 is the start of an incorrect combination. I did try all of this, but c3. c3 blocks everything off. Fair enough. Okay, so I did kind of walk into a combination that doesn't work. But apparently you can play just about anything else and you're in good shape. Alright. Rook h4 looks good. I mean, rook h4 is... It even says slightly better than bishop e6. Yeah, white has to guard the h3 pawn, and then, you know, black's just doing decently fine. Okay, it wants bishop e6 for whatever reason, but okay. Let's see. Queen g3, they take our queen, we take with check, and then take the queen. I think we win a piece. I don't think it matters which pawn you take with. At the very, very least, you can pick up a pawn on c6 for free, or you can play knight f5. I mean, I think this is the best way to mess up the pawn structure. Alright, our queen is hit. We don't have any fantastic checks. I don't think we're giving up the queen. We could take the knight, which is my first instinct. Or we can move the queen to safety, or we can try to counterattack black's queen, or... I think we take the knight and then play bishop f4, and the queen is trapped for black here. Yeah. Okay, if we take on f6, we lose the e5 pawn, I guess. Rook g8, queen f6, rook g7, we lose the rook, which is bad. Knight takes d3, queen f6 is a draw. f6 on move 1, he plays queen takes f5, and that seems to kind of slow us down. So, okay, so this is knight h3 check, pawn takes rook g8. This is the way to win the queen. Okay, good. Looks like knight to d4. They take on g4, knight f3 check, king moves, probably some additional checks, or queen d3 check. I think knight d4. Not the best move, but look decent. Maybe knight e1? Maybe knight e1. Knight e1 looks pretty dangerous. Like knight f3 check and stuff like that. Maybe it's knight e1? I'm not sure. Okay, spitballing a little bit here. White's not really threatening anything. Oh, he is threatening to take the rook, I guess. Maybe I should be more cautious. But he's not threatening to take the rook right now because I would take on f2. So he is taking on g4. That's kind of the main threat. I thought knight d4 kind of dealt with everything, but maybe not. Knight takes g4 right now is white's main threat, I would say. So what are we doing? We can take on f2, but after bishop takes, I'm not seeing a big follow-up. Also, if we take on f2, he might even take on f8, and then we might actually be in trouble there, maybe. I thought knight e1 looked decent, but there must be something wrong with it. Alright, what are we doing? What are we doing? Thought knight d4 was decent as well, but not the best move either. Did I try knight d4? Hold on, did I try that? Okay, I think I must have tried it. There's not a great way to attack the queen on g6. Not a great way to attack the rook on b1, really. Like knight a3, he plays rook f1. You know, at least as an idea. Did I try knight e3 already? Oh, it is knight e3. And then queen takes. No. Knight takes? I guess knight takes. And I guess this is winning here. Blocking the bishop while stopping knight takes g4. And then apparently black is completely winning here somehow. I guess he just plays... If he can just get the queen to f3, then it's game over. And I think this is the way the game went. And then white resigned because the queen's coming to f3. Okay. Interesting. I think we take on d5. And then we check on e5 and pick up the rook. So I think we do it this way. Yeah, you go from like very difficult one to very easy one, like very quickly. D7 threatens mate on b8, and if bishop takes c5, I think we throw in the queen to c7, and black has a hard time defending everything. B4, pawn takes, then bishop d6, and then pawn takes back on b4, and I think we win a piece. Could also, if we start with bishop d6, there's pawn to c4. So I think we start with b4. And then, I guess, bishop d6? No, something better. Could play a4 and the bishop is just dead, but I wouldn't really call that a tactic. I tried. Could do pawn takes, bishop takes, queen b3 and take the d pawn? No. Something better than all of that. What is better than all of that? I guess you just go queen b3 first. Okay, I mean, this is a knight, right? If he takes on a3, queen takes d5, and the rook can't be saved. I guess you're trapping the rook. I underestimated that idea a bit. Okay. If I take on c6, I get mated on b1, so let's not do that. If I take on c5, I don't really get anything out of that. My rook is hanging at the same time. Is there some kind of weird rook takes f7, king takes f7, bishop h5 check? g6, f5, something weird? The pieces are pretty far from the king side, but it doesn't feel like we have enough attacking pieces to make rook takes f7 work, but I don't know, maybe. There's no checks that are good right now. Rook takes f7 is really the only capture worth potentially considering. There's not a great way to attack the queen on b6, and it's defending the rook on b8. Our rook is hit, so in terms of making a bigger threat, there's not a whole lot of higher up options. I think it's rook takes f7. No, it's not that. Is it another puzzle where there's just multiple moves that are good as long as you don't walk into an attempted tactic? Maybe that's maybe that's the idea again. Maybe we just go like rook to d3 or rook to d1 and just play the game. Rook to d1, then rook to g1 looks decent, I will say. I don't know. Let's go rook d1. No, not the move. I guess we could take the rook and then play pawn takes c6. Is that the idea? That doesn't feel like it, because the bishop goes to d6 and everything's kind of frozen. I don't know. This isn't it either. I know this isn't it. This isn't it. Do we just go rook d3? Ah, okay. Rook c7, lining up on the bishops, you win one of the two pieces. That's a miss from me for sure. If I take, there's bishop d6. Is that the trick? I think this is stuff like we can take on c5, then e3, and have two connected pass pawns with a pretty easily winning position, I think. But maybe something better. And then, what, c5 or something? c5, they take on c7, we take on d6. No. Rook c6, they take us, we take them. Yeah, this leads to a winning position here. Okay, I missed this rook c7 idea. That's unfortunate. Okay. Probably we'll get to 900 puzzles today, and then we'll pause off. I'm feeling really off today. I'm having a lot of trouble with these, but we'll try to make it to 900. What are we doing here? Oh, boy. Queen f5, attacking the f7 pawn looks decent. You have to be careful about moving our rook off of the first rank because of queen f1 check. Bishop g7, I think he takes with the rook. We check on e8, the rook blocks, and I don't see the follow-up there. What are we doing? So no great checks. We're not taking on c5. Knight e5. Oh, okay. Knight e5 is actually the move. Knight e5 hits the queen. Pawn takes, queen takes, leads to mate, and we're also threatening f7. Okay, this one's pretty straightforward once you see the move. All right. I think we can take on e6 and then play knight f5 and then fork the king and the queen and the bishop, and the e6 pawn is pinned. Yeah, this is very bad, and white won the game later on. All right, we have to act pretty swiftly, it looks like. Rook b5 check, pawn takes, rook d6 check, king a7, queen d7 mates pretty soon. king c7, queen d7 also mates. I think we start with rook b5 check. And then, yeah, white mates here pretty easily. Okay. Bishop f4. If queen takes f4, rook e8's mate. If rook trades, then queen takes f4, queen e8 is still mate. And if black tries to protect e8, we take on c7 and he's overworked. Good. I don't think we need to rush to take on g7. Because if the rook moves, we take on g6, and black's in trouble anyways. So we could take the knight and then the pawn, maybe? And then try to get the bishop to the d5 square. I kind of feel like the rook on g7 is not so important in this position. We could take e6 and then bishop f7, or bishop d5, but then there's rook e8. c7, rook takes, queen takes, rook blocks, take that. Maybe that's a move? Okay, I didn't think about this, but I think you can take g7. I think you can take g7 here. And then if I promote, the rook takes, then I take on e6 and g6 and f5, and looks bad, but maybe something better. Take, king takes, queen g. I don't think I want to take e6 right away, because after rook takes, I don't have a great follow-up. The c8 square is still covered. So I think I promote and then take e6, but I don't feel like I need to rush that either. Black's not really threatening anything. So maybe I have time just to play like bishop f6 or something. But even after bishop f6, I'm not really threatening anything. Maybe I'm threatening bishop d8? I don't know. I think it might be this. Or sorry, this is what I meant. No? Okay, neither one of those. Maybe it is just bishop f6. Yeah, and I guess black is just tied up here. Yeah, it's just not really any... I think other moves are good here too, is my assumption. Yeah, it says h4 is also winning. Other moves are good too. Okay. What are we doing here? I think I can take d5 and then just play even a slow move like knight f4. Because if the knight moves from b5, we trade rooks and push the a-pawn, which looks dangerous. I think that's winning. Rook d5, knight c5, I thought maybe king e7. Knight a4, he plays rook takes a6, hitting the knight. I like that emoji. I need that popping over my head. Knight a4. Take, knight c5, king e7, knight a4. Knight a4, I thought rook takes a6. Unless we're... Yeah, I think he counterattacks the rook there. Or counterattacks the knight there, I think. I think on the other hand, if we take d5 and play knight f4, I don't think black has a good way to guard that pawn. And then we'll play knight d5 and then maybe go after the pin knight somehow. I do think we trade rooks. But then the question is where to put the knight. I think knight f4 is better, but hold on, let me see. Knight e5 is also a move worth thinking about. Maybe. But after king e7, I don't really see the follow-up. I'm thinking knight f4, and then trade, and then push. Yeah, this is, okay. So white is winning here, mainly because black's pawn structure is atrocious. We're also threatening knight takes d5. The only way for black to avoid losing that pawn is to push up to d4. But then, I mean, we can go knight d5, knight a8, and black just looks like they're in terrible shape. Right, black goes d4, they go knight d5, they go knight a8. White is just, like, significantly better, even though we're not ahead any material. Alright, this feels like some knight f4 or knight f2 thing. The question is, does it matter which one? I don't know if it matters. Knight f4, they take our rook. Oh, okay, yeah. We don't want to take the queen on d3 because they take us on h8 and mate us. That would be very bad. Knight f4. Oh, so it's not knight f4 because after knight takes f4, there's knight takes g6 being threatened. So it's knight f2. Knight f2, they take h7, we take back on h7. We're threatening the queen. We're threatening the rook on h1. If they take on h7 again, we take on d3, they take our queen. We take on e1 with check. And we, oddly enough, the king on c2 can't attack the knight on e1. We take on e7, we're up a piece, I believe. So I think it's knight f2. Okay, this is the more straightforward way of doing things, but the point is after rook takes, knight takes, and then knight takes e1 check, we win an extra piece. Knight f4 has the same idea, but runs into knight takes f4, white's attacking the g6 pawn. This would be bad for us. Okay. So yeah, that was, you had to see the knight f2 or knight f4 tactic first, but then you had to figure out which of the two was better in that case. I think this is knight e3. Knight e3, you guard d5. If they take, you eventually fork and win the rook, and you're up the exchange. You can also mate, it looks like. But other moves would win as well. Okay, good. We did just hit 900. Dalton, every puzzle, I think it's knight f2. They've had a lot of knight f2 ones. That's for sure. This one I think is bishop takes h6, queen f6. I think this is relatively straightforward. I guess he could play king g6, but then we just take the rook. So this is just game over. 5 minutes of calculation later, yeah, it's knight f2. I'm very much a double check things kind of guy. I think I have some like perfectionist tendencies for sure, which is good in some ways and bad in other ways. I think bishop takes g6 looks really good. I think this looks... Oh, sorry. Oh, bishop d5 is better, probably. Oh, or rook takes d5, f7, then bishop d5. Sorry. A little bit sloppy there, okay. Bishop d5 first. There are arrows in hell, I know. That's funny. Maybe bishop d5 first. He takes on e2. You take on f7, king f8. And then bishop takes g6 and rook to b8 is kind of tough to stop, interestingly enough. Maybe it's this. Check. Take. And then, yeah, rook to b8's difficult to deal with. All right. Bishop c7 and then take the knight on b6. Looks good. Also, rook takes e7, followed by bishop g5 and knight f6. Also looks very good. That might even be better. Let's get rid of that. Hit this. Maybe even bishop e5 is good. Bishop e5 and checking with the knight looks strong, but this is more straightforward, I guess. And I don't even think we want to take the rook. I think we go queen h4 and just keep attacking is my assumption. Oh, okay. Can't take the rook, can't do other stuff. Rook takes f5 and discovered checks also look very good, I think. Bishop h6. Did I already try queen h4? I did. Okay. We could also just take the rook and then take f5. Then bishop e7. Yeah, but that looks pretty good. Take f5. And then we go bishop e7 if they take back. And then we get mate eventually. Okay, I think I'll just get to 905 and then pause there. So let's do two more. F5 check, pawn takes, king e3, and then rook to e2. Rook d e2 is mate. King moves anywhere else, we win the rook on d3. Yeah, this would be mate. Okay, one more. I have seen this game. You want 910? I think this one is like bishop a6 or something like that. You eating need some entertainment. It's like rook e7 and then bishop a6, I think is this one. I've seen this game. I can't remember which move order it is. I think it's rook e7 first, and then bishop a6. This is a very nice tactic. Pawn takes b6, and then like knight to b5, I think wins the exchange. Oh. No, somehow not. Maybe pawn to c6 first instead? No. Knight to b5 first? Okay, I guess this works as well. Rook moves, take a7, take b6. Bad news for black. I think that taking on b6 also wins at least the exchange, I'm pretty sure. Take b6, and then knight to b5. Oh, the rook has more squares to escape to. Okay, I guess it doesn't actually win the exchange. Okay. You want to go knight b5 first so the rook can't move down the c file. Alright, just for you, Ernesto, we're going to 910, or to number 910. Knight f5, pawn takes, queen g5 is mate. If you don't take the knight, you get to d6 and make a fork. Rook d6 almost traps the queen, but you can take b3, so I guess knight d6 is better. We can take f6 and then play some kind of bishop off of the f-file to have a skewer, or a pin on the d-file, something like that. But then he plays rook d6, and then I don't see a great way to continue attacking there. We can take f6 and then go bishop c6, which is interesting. He takes, we take, we skewer on that file, or on that 6th rank. Rook c8. I don't know the follow-up there, though. I think we have to take the knight at the start. I mean, we don't have to, but like if we move away, he takes on e4. So I think taking on f6 is pretty much mandatory. And then the question is, what do we do with our bishop? Oh, bishop a6 is best. Bishop a6, and then you fork instead of skewer. There we go. That's a piece, and that is also going to be a piece with the fork. All right. Let's see. Feels like we just go rook d1 and just, you know, attack the bishop that's pinned. And I don't think there's a way to protect the bishop, right? Rook d1? No. Somehow that's not winning. I guess there's bishop b7. Maybe we have to be careful about that. Maybe bishop b7 would work. I ever used StreamYard? I feel like I've heard of that, but no, I've never actually used it. Is that like a streaming program or something like that? I'm not entirely sure. Maybe we start with e6 check or e4. Oh, maybe it's e4. E4 looks pretty good. I think we start e4, yeah. And then now we might go rook to d1 to win the bishop. Yeah, because if you go rook d1 at the start, there's bishop b7, and black is actually winning here. But if you play e4, then you can play rook d1, and now white's winning. Link my YouTube to it so we could have a call-in. Yeah, I'll have to look that up and figure out how that works. I'm going to do just this one more puzzle here and call it a day. But yeah, I'll take a look into that. I'll have to see what's going on at StreamYard. What is this? I think we take on g6, and then if they take back, we take f8. This one's pretty straightforward. Okay, we just take the rook. And okay, we made it through 910. Ernesto got his lunch finished up, maybe. And yeah, so I think we start off at, what did we start off at today? I think it was 830. We got to 910. We did about 80 puzzles. I think yesterday we did also 80, I believe. So we did 80 both days here. We have about 228 left. So that's the amount that is remaining here. And yeah, so thanks for hanging out. Ernesto, thanks for hanging out there. Torty Ritz as well. You're woodpeckering everyone this weekend. Do you have a tournament you're playing, or what's going on this weekend? So hopefully everybody's enjoyed the stream, though. I will be back, not tomorrow. I'm not going to do the weekend stream necessarily, but I'll be back again on Monday for the next stream, 10 a.m. Eastern time once again. We're going to try to work towards finishing up the rest of the puzzles. For sure, we'll finish all the rest of the 220-ish puzzles next week. Probably by Wednesday is my assumption. I'll try to knock them out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, something like that. And then we'll start on cycle 2 next week as well, probably around the Thursday range is my assumption. And we'll keep going there. Oh, very cool. Got a tournament. Hope you do well. Hope it goes well for you, Ernesto. You'll have to let me know next Monday when I stream again how it went. All right, so that's it for me, though. Hope you guys have a good rest of the day. I will see you guys again on Monday for the next stream, and I will be back then. Monday at 10 a.m. See you then. Bye-bye.